Welcome back to another segment with Kalamazoo Wings head coach Nick Bootland. In part two, we're going to explore what the foundation of the ECHL contracted players look like through this point of the summer here in Kalamazoo. Obviously, in part one, Nick mentioned the affiliation and talked about the affiliation with the Vancouver Canucks and Utica Comets and what players or numbers of players he anticipates on seeing. But the big quote that we pulled from that is you have to build your team without them first to establish a solid ECHL club. So, Nick, we've seen some of the players that have been announced. There are a number of players that have been signed, but it's my job to keep the suspense going throughout the summer, so we've only announced a few of them. One of the big themes is a core. And there's a lot of people that talk about your core and how you bring guys back year over year. And so I find that interesting that people bring that up. It has to say something that a player wants to come back and play in Kalamazoo year after year after year. It's not just you who wants them. It's a two-way street. The player has to want it too. And in the ECHL, that doesn't happen very often. What is it about the culture in Kalamazoo and the Kalamazoo Wings Hockey Club that makes people want to come back and play?
Well, I feel the retention rate is going to be really high this summer, first of all. These guys felt like the second half of the year and then the postseason that we had more to come, and we felt like we were a better team than the result we finished with a Game 7 loss. So that helped in some capacity. Obviously, our new facility in our locker room has helped. Mark Olson is our strength coach with Athletic Mentors. We had two players who used them the summer before, in Kyle Bushy and Joel Martin, who obviously had outstanding years for us. We've now had more players that are interested in working with and spending their own money to work out with Mark in the summertime because they know what he brings to the table. We know that we're going to be better because of him. And our players love that. So we made some changes in the last couple of years on how we're going to do our approach. And, the players hate it, and it is a bit of a terrible quote, but it's like, you're going to get bitter or you're going to get better. And we're going to work. And we feel that when you come to Kalamazoo that you leave a better player after. That's our selling point. That's what we push all the time. Obviously, there's AHL proximity and how close we are to all those AHL teams is a selling point. But I feel that, they get an honest approach in everything we do, an honest, hardworking approach in everything that we do. So, I feel it's accumulation of a lot of different things. We're going to tell them straight up, and sometimes they're not going to like what they hear from me or from our staff, but it's going to be the honest truth. And, I go back to, I guess I'm going to talk about when I played, but you want that. That's what you want as a player. You just want an open communication on what happens and where you stand as an individual. And you might not always agree with that, but we're going to tell you what we think, and that's going to make you better. And I think people appreciate the honesty and how that works, and then the fact that they can become better professionals.
One of the things that should make a fan optimistic about this upcoming season is the foundation of the team. You have solidified veterans, Kyle Bushy, Justin Taylor, guys like that who you're going to get production from on a yearly basis. But then you have sort of these wild cards who are young but have very high ceilings. Kyle Blaney is sort of a high-octane player who brings loads of energy. Scott Henniger is regarded as one of the best teammates you could ever have. He was a 3-year assistant captain when he was in college. Tyler Hainanen, a guy who joined the Wings with 5 games left in the regular season, sort of in and out of the lineup in the playoffs, stepped up in Game 7. He has an unbelievable ceiling. You're pretty confident that he's going to be a solid hockey player, but one of the nice things about that foundation that you've built so far with this year's team is the fact that you do have those guys, those steady Eddies, the trusty 20-goal scorers, or Kyle Bushy, who's going to be put on the ice in just about every situation that you're going to see. And then you have those young guys who you can anticipate could have a breakout year at any time. So that's fun to see.
Yeah, I think my process when I go through how we want to build our team and our organization is I feel like the veteran presence is important. And there hasn't been a year that I've coached where we haven't used the maximum number of veterans.
Which, by the way, is not that common in the ECHL. You see teams that only have 1 or 2 veterans. They play the young person game, but you like to max out that number.
And I think the reason for that is, one, if you do a good job and you get quality people on and off the ice, that they're going to show them what to do, and they're going to lead the way. And Kyle Bushy is probably not going to get called up to the American Hockey League anymore with where he's at in his career. He might be hopeful for that, and he works for that every day, and he works to get better every day, and I hope it does happen. But the likelihood of his age and him getting called up is not an easy thing for that to make that happen, right? So, we look to establish guys that we can build around, that are going to show everyone how to do it the right way. Justin Taylor, his commitment level, how he goes on the ice early every single day to make sure that he's prepared, and then leads the way with his consistency. And these guys have high athletic ability, but they're very good in the weight room in the off season and during the season to show what they need to do and to be consistent because of their the shape they're in. They're so consistent. So that's one of the biggest things for us, is having that staple, so that when your young guys are going up and down, or your Vancouver guys are going up and down, we still have that core to lead the way and show these players what it takes.
One of the things that hasn't been talked about much, at least from the Kalamazoo Wings organization, was the suspension of Ben Wilson that stemmed from Game 2 of the first round of the postseason. The ECHL announced a few weeks back that the additional suspension to Wilson is 15 games to start the regular season. He's back here in Kalamazoo. A lot of opinions about that, the act and the ensuing suspension and results. What's your take on Ben Wilson coming back to Kalamazoo? You're obviously very, very confident in him as a hockey player and as a human being. What's going on with him right now? Have you spoken to him about it? He's aware of the suspension, but where does Ben Wilson stand right now coming into training camp and then the regular season?
I think, first of all, that Ben Wilson understands that he made a mistake, and he's remorseful, and it's not who he is. So he made no excuses when he had his hearing with the league. He was very accountable for what happened, and very remorseful for what happened. He understands that it can't happen again. He understands that it was a huge blemish, and he's embarrassed by it. But at the same time, it doesn't change my opinion about Ben Wilson. Ben Wilson was a no-brainer to come back to my hockey team. There was no hesitation in my decision at all. He's a leader on and off the ice. He does things well in the community. He's a great teammate. He's a coach's dream when it comes to, hey, we need to touch that line. Ben Wilson goes 2 feet past the line. If we need to go 100%. Ben Wilson goes 100% every single day in practice and in games, and gives you everything he has, and he does everything at a high octane pace. And he leads by example. So it is obviously a touchy subject for people, and some people, might disagree with my decision. But I know, and I'm confident, that he has the respect of the room, and that's important to us. And the way he handles his business, he won't do it again. He'll think before he acts, and he won't let emotion get in the way, and we move forward.
But you still want him to be him. It was like last year when we talked about Ben Wilson, he was wearing the C as the captain, but you didn't want that to take away from the player that he is. You still want him to go out there and say, hey, if somebody needs to be hit in the mouth, I'm going to hit him in the mouth, because that's part of my job, right?
Yeah, that's who he is, right? He's a hard-nosed kid, and as the incident doesn't look like he's a straight-up kid, but he definitely is. This is the only incident, even to the point where I'm good friends with the Toledo coach and Ben and Dan Watson, and Dan was like, I've never seen him do anything like that before, and we've played against him for 4 or 5 years. So it's unfortunate that it happened. But we're on the track of moving forward now. And
last but not least, as the summer comes to a close and training camp is set to open, we're just a couple months from training camp opening up, basically to the day. How does your team stand health-wise? There was a lot of guys who were sort of the walking wounded, or maybe even the walking dead if you saw them in the community throughout the summer. You had slings, you had surgeries, you had broken bones in hands and stuff like that. Guys are healing up nicely during the summer and should be ready to go come training camp.
Yeah, everybody's kind of progressing. We ended up having, I think, 4 surgeries, and then obviously Mingo's broken leg. And Mingo's broken leg has been a slow process because of the type of break that it was, and it's slowly but surely mending. We had Kyle Bushy with the surgery on the thumb, and that's at a point now where we're confident he'll be ready to go. You had Ben Wilson's shoulder that had to be done. So he'll definitely be ready by the time his suspension is over, and if not earlier. I would imagine he's on timeline for the beginning of the season so that he can start serving those games right away. You have Joel Martin, who's he's healing well, and then Justin Taylor was the most graphic and the most upfront in everybody's mind of how he's doing, and he's doing a lot better, and we're really excited about having him back, and I know he's excited to start playing hockey again.
Well, thank you so much. We can't wait till training camp opens and the regular season gets underway, and we appreciate the time you took to sit down with us.
Thank you, Joel.